Desire outlives decay. I remember the first time I heard those words. I was in Oklahoma staying with my grandparents when Eric Dubé dropped his Things with Wings project, introduced by a track called Stuck, featuring a poem with those three words.
Because even though that cage seems everlasting, desire outlives decay.
Since then, that phrase, desire outlives decay, has become my mantra throughout life, inspiring me to push through the pitfalls. Desire outlives decay is etched onto my daily task journal, and I even designed a scarf with the phrase knitted into it. But you're here to discover something about what beauty is. As an artist and designer myself, it feels like my life's mission is to create beautiful things. But beauty is such a complicated and ever-fleeting idea. I find beauty in so many things around me, but when it comes to trying to capture its essence into a tangible idea to replicate my own work, it always slips through my fingers. Recently, the Angels of the Algorithm delivered me 2 videos discussing separately the ideas of decay and beauty that made me want to finally dive deep into that question that has haunted me, and probably you, for so long. What is beauty? I started my research process by writing down 3 things I found to be beautiful as a guideline for my future hypothesis. Those 3 things are the movie Stalker by Tarkovsky, any one of the magical garments designed by mcqueen, and the ethereality of ballet performances. These examples of beauty are important to me because they're all created by humans, which means hopefully they hold clues to how we can also create beautiful things in our own artistic pursuits. The next thing I did was look to the past at some of the possible hypotheses from other great thinkers of their time who have attempted to define beauty, starting all the way back in 300s BC with Aristotle. The Greek philosopher says that beauty is when form defines matter, as opposed to matter defining form. For example, a plump duck sitting immobile in the grass appears ugly. Ugly simply marking the antithesis of beauty, since its matter, being overweight, defines its form, immobility. However, a hummingbird in flight appears beautiful because its form, the flapping wings and streamlined shape, define its matter as in flight. During the Enlightenment, many great thinkers tried again to tackle the arduous task of defining beauty. Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, wrote that beauty as a form and dignity represents harmony and order, but crucially that it is separate from the sublime, which is important because it gives us a new reference point for beauty. Edmund Burke expands on this, saying that beauty is the promise of happiness while the sublime is an overwhelming feeling of dread. So beautiful things are symbols of positive feelings in people as opposed to sublime things, which can inspire negative emotions. Friedrich Schiller, a German philosopher and poet, says that beauty is the appearance of freedom. A bird overcoming gravity to fly wherever it pleases is one of the purest examples of freedom. Another example is watching a ballerina perform a routine so perfectly, it seems they're not constrained to the limits of the human body. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a poet and philosopher after the time of the Enlightenment, has much to say about beauty. But what stood out to me was beauty as a step to achieving immortality. When beautiful things enter the world, people notice and make sure they are protected, passed on, and replicated. Think about the Mona Lisa and how long it has been protected and how long it will continue being protected, all because of how beautiful it is. But beauty can also propel us forwards and compel us to be better. A beautiful object or person's very existence, arbitrary as it is inspirational simply because they are living proof that people can capture the essence of beauty, which means it's possible for us to find beauty again in the world, or in ourselves, or create something that displays it. As a fashion designer, this beautiful inspiration is what I feel when I look at Alexander McQueen's archive.
I'm not scared of the moment, I'm just scared of what's after.
All of these definitions show how complex the idea of beauty is. One can even question if beauty is objective or subjective. If beauty is intrinsic to objects or people, then it must be objective. But more than likely, beauty is subjective, meaning that it's closer to an extrinsic reaction to a thing or an idea. This makes more sense if you compare beauty to the sublime, a concept often confused with beauty. The sublime feeling, as previously noted, is often a reaction to things like grand landscapes or larger-than-life creations, which simultaneously instill fear, awe, wonder, and even a perverse pleasure in those that stand in its overwhelming presence. Here we can create somewhat of a binary between beauty and sublime. Beautiful things are contained to represent freedom and inspire happiness. Sublime things are colossal, represent all which we cannot control, and inspire dread.
I'm not scared of the colors, I'm just scared of the pattern.
Looking at this binary reminded me of the video I watched on decay and the concept of entropy. As the universe expands, things transition from order to chaos. Something at low entropy is like the definition of beauty, contained and harmonious. Something with high entropy, on the other hand, is like the sublime, larger than life and out of control. And between those 2 points is, you guessed it, decay. Decay is inevitable. The second something is created, it begins its process of decay. This is because of entropy. Order transitions into chaos, and compressed energy expands as time progresses forwards. When something is created, it has a low entropy. So in this sense, life is similar to beauty. When something no longer exists, it has an extremely high entropy. So death, or the inevitability of death perhaps, is the sublime. And at all points between life and death, decay.
I can't help it, can't hold that.
Another thing that exists between life and death is time. Decay is parallel with time, and as time moves forwards, things decay. So if decay is related to beauty, then maybe time is as well. Not so long ago, when I was visiting an art museum with a friend, we made it a point to intentionally take a significant amount of time in an effort to truly ponder the art pieces in front of us. Eventually, we came up with a theory about how beautiful something is could be related to time, where the relationship between the two variables forms something like a bell curve. When first exposed to a piece of art, you may perceive it as ugly. However, as you spend time with it and take in all the details, think about its meaning, you'll come to appreciate it more until eventually you get to that peak of beauty at the top. Then, with continued exposure, the art loses its effects, and where once before you saw fine details and exquisite craftsmanship, you begin to see the minuscule mistakes, the flecks of imperfection and ugliness breaking through. As time goes on, decay inevitably spoils all.
All I see is black.
But what happens when decay is, even just for a moment, overcome, such as at the peak of the perhaps metaphorical aforementioned bell curve? What if the gravity that constantly pulled us down was defied? In this freedom, there is beauty. And what if time was frozen in its tracks? In this control, there is beauty. What if a ray of happiness shines through the darkness? In this promise, there is beauty. And finally, what if desire outlived decay? It turns out the answer was in front of me the whole time. Beauty, in my eyes, is when, even for a brief moment, I have the privilege to witness the manifestation of someone's desire outliving decay. See, if you asked me before what beauty was, my answer would have been similar but incomplete. I would have told you that beauty was the outcome of suffering. In my head, everything that was beautiful took some sort of sacrifice. Paintings were beautiful because of the labor put into them. Songs were beautiful because it was the reprocessed trauma of the artist into something empowering. People were beautiful because they were survivors of life's turmoil, or because of the painstaking effort they put into their appearance. But sacrifice and suffering are so negative. Reframing this process to achieving beauty as desire flips it into something much more positive. The act of creation then becomes intentional and powerful and within your control. Desire outlives decay. Desire means to yearn for something greater with your entire being. Outlives means to overcome, defy, and push past any obstacle. And what are we overcoming when we create something beautiful? Decay. Decay meaning the constant state of deterioration or moving towards disorder as time progresses. But this can lead to a counterpoint, the claim that some things are beautiful because they decay. McQueen, someone who I see as a creator of beautiful things, is even quoted as saying, "I see beauty in everything. What normal people would perceive as ugly, I can see the beauty in it." So how can beauty be desire outliving decay if something decayed is beautiful? Well, if something is fully decayed, it's no longer here, so we are only seeing its mere shadow of an afterimage as a reminder that it was once alive, highlighting the nature of life and the inescapable reality of death. In this case, a fully decayed object represents the sublime, and therefore can't be beautiful. The complication arises when an object is in the middle of decay. Such examples are a painting that is weathered and cracking, or ancient ruins that are eroding away and covered in moss. The object currently isn't existing at its beautiful inception, nor has it succumbed to the sublime totality of decay to begin its process of rebirth. But still, there's a magical feeling upon witnessing it. We say these things are beautiful, but maybe they aren't. And they aren't quite sublime either. They are the embodiment of the decay between the two extremes. Perhaps a secret third thing even. Or maybe, as it turns out, not so secret, because when I googled beauty, sublime, and the autocomplete filled in the word picturesque. Upon further reading, the picturesque was actually an art movement in the later 18th century defined by paintings that included elements of beauty in the foreground and sublime in the background, but with a transitory section in the middle ground. Picturesque is the word to define this in-between state of beauty and sublime. It's also often associated with nature, and decay is a natural process. So, our original definition for beauty, desire outlives decay, still holds up, and we learned a new word. So, what is beauty? For me, beauty is when desire outlives decay, even if just for a moment. But of course, beauty is subjective, and for you it may be different, but hopefully the things we talked about today will bring you a step closer to defining it for yourself. And as for creating things that are beautiful, I know I have the desire. Everything's already constantly decaying, so all that's left is to pick up the tools, put in the work, and let my desire outlive decay.